There's a theater that never closes. Its stage is everywhere. In the bedroom where whispers turn to silence. In the kitchen where a glance says more than words. In the car where two people sit side by side, miles apart. The actors never rest because the performance is their life. And the most dangerous role of all is the one we call love. You believe love is pure. You believe it is selfless. You believe it exists beyond the mechanics of power, beyond the cold calculations of gain and loss. But what if I told you that every kiss is a negotiation, every touch a transaction, every declaration of devotion, a strategic move on a board you didn't even know you were playing on? Welcome to the theater of human intimacy, where the mask is not just worn, it is worshipped, where vulnerability is a weapon and tenderness is a tactic. This is not the love they sold you in movies. This is the love that exists in the shadows of the human heart, where desire meets dominance, where affection becomes leverage, and where the question is never if you will manipulate, but only how skillfully you will do it. Before we continue, a warning. The knowledge that's about to be shared cannot be unlearned. It will permanently change the way you see human relationships. If you're ready to abandon comfortable illusions and see what's behind the stage, subscribe now, because this isn't just a video. It's the beginning of your journey under the mask. Now let us begin. Picture a woman sitting at the edge of a bed. The room is dim, lit only by the pale glow of a street lamp filtering through half-closed curtains. Her hands rest in her lap, fingers interlaced, knuckles white. Across from her, a man stands with his back to the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. The air between them is thick, not with words, but with everything they refuse to say. This is the moment before the storm, the breath before the scream, the silence that weighs more than any argument ever could. She speaks first, her voice soft, almost fragile. I just want to understand why you didn't tell me. The words float between them like smoke, delicate and dissipating. But beneath that softness is something else, something sharp. It is not a question. It is an accusation wrapped in the silk of concern. She has learned, as all skilled players learn, that the tone matters more than the content. Softness disarms. Vulnerability invites confession. And confession, once given, becomes a chain. He shifts his weight, uncrosses his arms, then crosses them again. The body betrays what the mouth conceals. I didn't think it mattered, he says, and even he doesn't believe it. The words hang in the air, unconvincing, a poorly rehearsed line. She tilts her head, just slightly, a gesture so small it could be missed, but it is calculated. It says, I am listening. It says, I am hurt. It says, you owe me more than this. And he does owe her, not because of any moral debt, but because in the economy of their relationship, he has taken more than he has given. She has kept a ledger, though she would never call it that. Every late night, he came home, without explanation. Every time he chose his friends over her plans. Every moment he was physically present but emotionally absent. She has recorded it all, not in words, but in the quiet resentment that builds like sediment at the bottom of a river. And now, she is calling in the debt. This is the first law of intimate power. Every relationship is an exchange. Love is the currency, but control is the prize. The one who cares less holds the power. The one who needs less dictates the terms. And the cruelest truth of all is that both players know this, even if neither will ever say it aloud. He exhales, a long breath that sounds like surrender. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I should have told you. The apology is a white flag, but it is also a test. Will she accept it? Will she press further? The next move is hers, and both of them know it. She looks down at her hands, a pause that stretches, just long enough to make him uncomfortable. When she looks up, her eyes are wet, not with tears, but with the threat of them. Tears are the nuclear option in the arsenal of emotional warfare. They transform the battlefield. They make the aggressor into the villain and the accuser into the victim. I just feel like I can't trust you anymore, she whispers, and the words land like a blade between his ribs. Trust. The word is a weapon because it cannot be measured, cannot be proven, cannot be restored with logic. Once questioned, it becomes a shadow that follows every interaction. He will spend weeks, maybe months, trying to rebuild what she has just demolished with a single sentence. And she knows this. She knows that by framing the issue as trust, she has shifted the power dynamic entirely in her favor. But let us not mistake her for a villain. She is not evil. She is human. And humans, when hurt, when afraid, when desperate to maintain connection, will use whatever tools they have. She learned this not from a book, but from experience. From watching her mother manage her father with sighs and silences. From seeing her friends wield guilt like a scalpel in their own relationships. From the 1,000 small moments where she realized that honesty without strategy is just vulnerability without protection. He steps forward, closing the distance between them. His hand reaches for hers, and she lets him take it. But her fingers remain limp, unresponsive. This too is a message. I am here, but I am not with you. I am present, but I am withheld. He squeezes her hand gently, a plea without words. Please don't pull away. Please don't make me the monster. Please let this be enough. But it is not enough. It is never enough when the wound is not about the incident, but about the pattern. She is not angry about this one moment. She is angry about all the moments that came before. All the times she swallowed her frustration. All the times she chose peace over confrontation. And now, the bill has come due. This is the second law of intimate power. Resentment is a debt that compounds. Every unspoken grievance adds interest. Every swallowed complaint becomes a stone in the foundation of future conflict. And when the reckoning comes, it is never about what it appears to be about. It is about everything. It is about the accumulated weight of 1,000 small betrayals, each one insignificant on its own, but together crushing. She pulls her hand away, slowly, not in anger, but in something worse. Resignation. I think I need some space, she says, and the words are a controlled detonation. Space is the ultimate power move in the game of intimacy. It is the withdrawal of presence, the threat of absence, the suggestion that the relationship itself is negotiable. It forces the other person to confront the possibility of loss, and in that confrontation, they reveal how much they are willing to sacrifice to prevent it. His face changes. The defensiveness melts into something rawer. Panic. Wait, what does that mean? Are you breaking up with me? The questions tumble out, unguarded, desperate. And in that desperation, the power shifts completely. He is no longer the one who withheld information. He is now the one begging for clarity, for reassurance, for control over a situation that has slipped through his fingers like water. She stands, smoothing her clothes, a gesture of composure. I don't know what it means, she says. I just need time to think. The ambiguity is intentional. By refusing to define the terms, she keeps him in a state of uncertainty. And uncertainty is a form of torture. It keeps him awake at night, replaying their conversation, analyzing every word, every pause, every inflection. It keeps him reaching for his phone, typing messages he deletes before sending. It keeps him in a state of suspended anxiety, where he cannot move forward and cannot go back. This is the third law of intimate power. Ambiguity is control. The one who defines the relationship holds the power. The one who sets the boundaries dictates the terms. And the one who can walk away, or threaten to, wins the negotiation. But let us shift our gaze. Let us leave this couple in their dim room and turn our attention to another stage, another performance. Because the theater of love is vast, and every actor plays their role differently. La historia continúa. Consider a man who has been married for 15 years. His name does not matter. His face is unremarkable. He could be anyone. He could be your neighbor, your colleague, your friend. He sits at his kitchen table, a cup of coffee growing cold in front of him, and he scrolls through his phone with the practiced casualness of someone who has done this 1,000 times before. His wife is upstairs, getting ready for work. He can hear the water running, the familiar sounds of her morning routine. And in this moment, in this sliver of privacy, he opens a message from a woman who is not his wife. The message is innocent. On the surface, "Hey, how are you? Hope you're having a good day." Simple words, friendly words, the kind of words that could be sent to anyone. But context is everything. This woman is a colleague. They have worked together for 3 years. They have shared lunches, inside jokes, the easy intimacy of people who spend more waking hours together than they do with their own families. And somewhere along the way, the line blurred. He types a response. Doing okay. Busy as always. How about you? He hits send and immediately locks his phone, placing it face down on the table. The gesture is automatic, a reflex born from repetition. His wife appears in the doorway, dressed for work, keys in hand. Ready? She asks. He nods, pockets his phone, and follows her to the car. And in that simple sequence of actions, an entire world of deception unfolds. This is the fourth law of intimate power. Secrets are a form of sovereignty. What your partner does not know cannot hurt them, but more importantly, cannot control you. Every hidden message, every omitted detail, every carefully constructed half-truth is a declaration of independence. It says, there is a part of me you do not own. There is a territory of my life where your rules do not apply. But why does he do it? Is he a bad person? Is he cruel? Is he intentionally trying to hurt the woman he promised to love forever? The answer is more complicated than a simple yes or no. He does it because somewhere in the architecture of his marriage, he lost himself. Not dramatically, not in a single moment, but gradually, imperceptibly, like a shoreline eroding grain by grain. He became a husband, a father, a provider. He became the roles he was expected to play. And in becoming those things, he stopped being himself. The messages with his colleague are not about sex, though they could become that. They are not even about romance, though there's a charge to them, an electricity that his marriage no longer carries. They are about being seen, about being interesting, about being desired not for what he provides, but for who he is, or at least, for who he can pretend to be in the carefully curated space of text messages. His wife knows something is wrong. She is not stupid. She has noticed the way he guards his phone, the way he smiles at the screen when he thinks she is not looking, the way he has become emotionally absent even when physically present. But she does not confront him. Not yet, because confrontation requires certainty, and certainty requires evidence, and evidence requires an investigation she is not sure she wants to conduct. Because what if she finds something? What if her suspicions are confirmed? Then she will have to make a choice, and choices have consequences. This is the fifth law of intimate power. Willful ignorance is a survival strategy. Sometimes, not knowing is easier than knowing. Sometimes, the illusion of stability is preferable to the chaos of truth. So she watches, and she waits, and she builds her own case in silence, collecting data points like a detective, preparing for a confrontation that may never come. Meanwhile, he continues his double life. Not a dramatic double life of hotel rooms and lies, but the quiet double life of emotional infidelity. He tells himself it is harmless. He tells himself he is not doing anything wrong. He tells himself that everyone needs an outlet, a space where they can be appreciated. And these justifications are not entirely false, but they are not entirely true either. They are the stories we tell ourselves to make peace with the parts of us we are ashamed of. One evening, his wife asks him a question. Do you still love me? The question comes out of nowhere, or so it seems to him. They are watching television, a mindless show neither of them is really paying attention to. The question hangs in the air, heavy and unavoidable. He looks at her, and for a moment, he sees not the woman she is now, but the woman she was when they met. Young, vibrant, full of dreams. And he sees what time has done to both of them. The way responsibility has carved lines into their faces. The way routine has dulled the spark they once had. Of course I do, he says, and he means it. But he also does not mean it. Because love, after 15 years, is not what it was in the beginning. It is not passion. It is not excitement. It is something quieter, something steadier, something that feels more like obligation than choice. And that terrifies him. Because if love is just obligation, then what is he? A prisoner? A martyr? A man who gave up his freedom for the sake of a promise he made when he was too young to understand what he was promising. She nods, accepting his answer, but her eyes tell a different story. She does not believe him. Or rather, she believes that he believes it. But she knows there's more he is not saying. And in that gap between what is said and what is meant, the distance between them grows. This is the sixth law of intimate power. Love is not a feeling. It is a decision. And every day, we decide whether to stay or to go, whether to invest or to withdraw, whether to fight for connection or to accept disconnection. And sometimes, we decide to stay in body while leaving in spirit. We become ghosts in our own relationships, present but not participating, alive but not living. Let us turn now to a different scene. A young couple, not yet married, not yet bound by the legal and social contracts that make leaving complicated. They are in the early stages, the honeymoon phase, where everything is still shiny and new. They are at a party, surrounded by friends, music, laughter. She is across the room, talking to someone, and he watches her, not with suspicion, but with something else. Possession. She laughs at something the other person says, and her hand touches their arm, a casual gesture, meaningless in its execution, but loaded in his interpretation. He feels something twist in his chest. Not quite anger, not quite fear. Something in between. Jealousy, the green-eyed monster that Shakespeare warned us about. The emotion we are taught to be ashamed of, the feeling that reveals our deepest insecurities. He walks over, sliding his arm around her waist, marking his territory with a gesture that appears affectionate, but is actually possessive. "Hey," he says, smiling at the person she was talking to, a smile that does not reach his eyes. She leans into him, and he feels a surge of satisfaction. She is his. She chose him. She is here with him, not with anyone else. But later, in the car on the way home, the mask slips. "Who was that guy you were talking to?" he asks, trying to sound casual, trying to sound like he is just making conversation. She glances at him, sensing the undercurrent. "Just a friend from work." Why? The why is a challenge. It is a dare. It says, if you are going to accuse me of something, say it directly. He shrugs. No reason. Just curious. But they both know it is not curiosity. It is interrogation. It is the beginning of a pattern that, if left unchecked, will grow into something darker, into control, into isolation, into the slow erosion of her autonomy in the name of his security. This is the seventh law of intimate power. Jealousy is not love. It is fear. Fear of loss. Fear of inadequacy. Fear that you are not enough, that you will be replaced, that the person you have claimed will realize they have options. And that fear, when acted upon, becomes a cage. It becomes checking phones, demanding passwords, questioning friendships, limiting freedoms. It becomes the transformation of a partner into a possession. She says nothing for the rest of the drive. She has learned that engaging with his jealousy only feeds it. So she withdraws, creating a small space of silence between them. And in that silence, he feels her pulling away, which only intensifies his fear, which will lead to more questions, more monitoring, more attempts to control. It is a cycle, a feedback loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy. His fear of losing her will become the very thing that drives her away. But she is not innocent in this dynamic either. She knows his jealousy. She has seen it before. And sometimes, when she is angry with him, when she wants to punish him for some perceived slight, she will be just a little too friendly with someone else. She will laugh just a little too loud. She will let her hand linger just a little too long. Not because she is interested in the other person, but because she knows it will get a reaction from him. And that reaction, that display of jealousy, is proof that he cares, that he is invested, that he is afraid of losing her. And in a twisted way, that fear is reassuring. This is the eighth law of intimate power. We test the people we love. We push boundaries to see if they will hold. We create small crises to see if they will stay. We manufacture jealousy to confirm desire, because in the absence of conflict, we begin to doubt. We begin to wonder if the relationship is real or if it is just comfortable. We begin to question if we are loved or if we are simply tolerated. La historia continúa. Now let us examine a different kind of power, a subtler manipulation. Consider a woman who has mastered the art of emotional unavailability. She is beautiful, intelligent, successful. Men are drawn to her like moths to a flame, and she knows it. She knows her value in the marketplace of desire, and she uses it strategically. She is dating someone. He is kind, attentive, perhaps too attentive. He texts her good morning every day. He makes plans weeks in advance. He talks about the future, about trips they will take, about meeting each other's families. And with every expression of his commitment, she feels something inside her recoil. Not because she does not like him, but because his eagerness makes him predictable. And predictability is the death of desire. So she pulls back. Not dramatically, not in a way that would cause a confrontation, but subtly. She takes longer to respond to his messages. She becomes busy, unavailable, always with a legitimate excuse. Work is demanding. She has plans with friends. She needs time for herself. All true statements, all reasonable explanations. But underneath, there is a strategy. She is creating scarcity. She is making herself less available so that her presence becomes more valuable. And it works. His texts become more frequent, more anxious. Is everything okay? Did I do something wrong? I miss you. Each message is a small confession of his growing dependence. And with each confession, the power dynamic shifts further in her favor. She has become the prize, and he has become the pursuer. She has become the one who grants access, and he has become the one who begs for it. This is the ninth law of intimate power. Scarcity creates value. The less available you are, the more desirable you become. It is the fundamental principle of economics applied to human relationships. Supply and demand, rarity and worth. The person who is always there, always available, always eager, becomes taken for granted. But the person who is elusive, who must be earned, who cannot be possessed, becomes an obsession. But there is a cost to this strategy. She knows it, even if she does not admit it. By keeping him at a distance, she protects herself from vulnerability. She maintains control. She ensures that she will never be the one who cares more, who needs more, who risks more. But in doing so, she also ensures that she will never experience true intimacy. Because intimacy requires surrender. It requires letting someone see you, not the curated version, but the real version. The messy, uncertain, afraid version. One night, he shows up at her apartment unannounced. She opens the door, surprised, and he is standing there with flowers, with a vulnerability in his eyes that makes her uncomfortable. I need to know where this is going, he says. I need to know if you feel the same way I do. Because I can't keep doing this. I can't keep wondering if I matter to you. And in that moment, she has a choice. She can let him in, emotionally, truly. She can admit that she is scared, that her unavailability is not indifference, but self-protection. She can risk being seen. Or she can maintain her position, her power, her control. She can tell him that she is not ready, that she needs more time, that he is asking for too much too soon. And in doing so, she can keep him in orbit, keep him hoping, keep him trying. She chooses the latter. I care about you, she says, and it is true. But I need you to be patient with me. I'm not good at this. The words are carefully chosen. They give him just enough to stay, but not enough to feel secure. They promise future intimacy without committing to present vulnerability. They are a masterclass in emotional management. He nods, accepting her terms, because what choice does he have? He is already invested. He has already fallen. And so he will wait, and he will hope, and he will continue to pursue, not realizing that the chase is the point, that she has structured the relationship in such a way that the pursuit is perpetual, that the destination is always just out of reach. This is the 10th law of intimate power. Hope is a leash. As long as someone believes that things might change, that you might open up, that the relationship might deepen, they will stay. They will tolerate uncertainty. They will accept breadcrumbs. They will convince themselves that patience is a virtue and that love is worth waiting for. And you, the withholder, maintain all the power without ever having to fully commit. But let us not judge her too harshly. She learned this behavior somewhere, perhaps from a parent who was emotionally distant, teaching her that love is conditional and must be earned. Perhaps from a past relationship where she gave everything and was left with nothing, teaching her that vulnerability is dangerous. Perhaps from a culture that tells women they must be mysterious, must play hard to get, must never appear too eager or they will lose their value. We are all products of our histories. We are all carrying wounds we did not choose. And those wounds shape how we love, how we trust, how we connect, or fail to connect. Let us shift our attention once more to a man who uses a different kind of power. Not emotional unavailability, but emotional intensity. He is the kind of man who falls fast and hard. Who declares love after 3 dates? Who talks about soulmates and destiny and forever? Who overwhelms with attention, with gifts, with grand gestures? At first, it is intoxicating. The woman he is pursuing feels special, chosen, adored. She has never experienced anything like this. He texts her constantly. He wants to see her every day. He tells her she is the most beautiful, the most intelligent, the most amazing person he has ever met. And she believes him. Because who does not want to be seen this way? Who does not want to be the center of someone's universe? But slowly, the intensity begins to feel like something else. Like pressure, like obligation, like a weight she did not ask to carry. He becomes upset if she does not respond to his messages immediately. He becomes hurt if she wants to spend time with her friends instead of him. He becomes anxious if she does not express her feelings with the same intensity he does. And suddenly, what felt like love begins to feel like a trap. This is the 11th law of intimate power. Intensity is not intimacy. Moving fast is not the same as going deep. Overwhelming someone with attention is not the same as truly knowing them. It is a form of control disguised as devotion. It is a way of creating dependency before the other person has time to think, to question, to establish boundaries. She tries to slow things down. "I think we should take this a little slower," she says. "I need some space to breathe." And his face crumbles. The hurt in his eyes is real, but it is also manipulative. "You don't feel the same way I do," he says, his voice breaking. "I thought we had something special." The implication is clear. If she needs space, she does not love him. If she wants to slow down, she is rejecting him. He has framed the situation in such a way that any attempt she makes to establish boundaries becomes an act of cruelty. And so she backs down. She apologizes. She reassures him. She agrees to see him more, to text him more, to give more of herself than she is comfortable giving. Because the alternative, the guilt of hurting him, feels worse than the discomfort of losing herself. And this is how it begins. The slow erosion of her autonomy. The gradual surrender of her identity, all in the name of love. This is the 12th law of intimate power. Guilt is a weapon. The person who can make you feel responsible for their emotions controls your behavior. If they are sad, it is because you did not do enough. If they are angry, it is because you did something wrong. If they are anxious, it is because you were not sufficiently reassuring. Your life becomes an endless attempt to manage their feelings, to keep them happy, to avoid being the cause of their pain. And in that process, you disappear. Months pass. She is no longer the person she was when they met. She has stopped seeing her friends as often because it upsets him. She has stopped pursuing her hobbies because he wants all her free time. She has stopped expressing opinions that differ from his because disagreement leads to hours of emotional processing that leave her exhausted. She has become a supporting character in his story, and she does not know how it happened. One day, she looks in the mirror and does not recognize herself. The woman staring back is tired, diminished, hollow. And she realizes that she has been so focused on not hurting him that she has been hurting herself. That his love, which felt so powerful, so all-consuming, was actually a form of suffocation. That she has been drowning slowly, and she called it devotion. She ends the relationship. It is not easy. He cries. He begs. He promises to change. He tells her she is making a mistake, that she will never find anyone who loves her the way he does. And he is right about that last part, but not in the way he means. She will never find anyone who loves her the way he does, because his love was not love. It was possession. It was need. It was the desperate clinging of someone who saw her not as a person, but as a solution to his own emptiness. This is the 13th law of intimate power. You cannot love someone into wholeness. You cannot fix someone with your affection. You cannot fill the void in another person's soul. And when you try, you lose yourself in the process. True love does not consume. It does not demand. It does not erase. True love sees you, honors you, and gives you space to be fully yourself. Anything less is just a negotiation where you are trading pieces of your soul for the illusion of connection. La historia continúa. Let us now consider the power dynamics within a long-term marriage. Not the early years, where passion still flickers, but the later years, where routine has calcified into ritual. A couple in their 50s. They have been married for 25 years. They have raised children together, weathered financial struggles, survived infidelities, both emotional and physical. They know each other in a way that only time allows. They can predict each other's reactions. They can finish each other's sentences. They are, in many ways, a single unit. But they are also strangers. Because knowing someone's habits is not the same as knowing their heart. And somewhere along the way, they stopped asking the deeper questions. They stopped being curious about each other's inner lives. They stopped trying to understand the person beneath the roles of spouse, parent, provider. She sits at the kitchen table, reading a book. He sits in the living room, watching television. This is how they spend most evenings. In the same house, but in different worlds. There is no hostility between them. No anger. No resentment. Just a quiet, pervasive indifference. They are roommates who share a history, a mortgage, and a last name. But they are not partners. Not in any meaningful sense. She wonders sometimes what would happen if she told him the truth. That she is lonely. That she feels invisible. That she cannot remember the last time he looked at her with desire, with interest, with anything other than the bland familiarity of someone who has stopped seeing. But she does not tell him. Because what would be the point? They are too old to start over. Too entangled to separate. Too tired to fight for something better. This is the 14th law of intimate power. Silence is a choice. Every day we choose what to say and what to withhold. And sometimes, the withholding is not strategic. It is not manipulative. It is simply the path of least resistance. It is easier to stay quiet than to risk conflict. Easier to accept disconnection than to demand more. Easier to live with loneliness than to face the possibility that the person you married is no longer capable of meeting your needs. He is not a bad man. He works hard. He provides. He has never raised his hand to her. He has been faithful, at least in body, for the last decade. But he has also stopped trying. He has stopped courting her, romancing her, pursuing her. He assumes that because they are married, because they have history, because they have survived this long, that the work is done. That love is a destination they reached years ago, not a garden that requires constant tending. One night, she makes a decision. She puts down her book, walks into the living room, and sits next to him on the couch. He glances at her, surprised by the deviation from routine. She takes a breath and says, "I think we should talk." The words are simple, but they carry weight. They are an invitation and a warning. They are the opening of a door that has been closed for years. He mutes the television. "Okay," he says, and there's caution in his voice. "What's wrong?" The question itself is revealing. He assumes that talking means something is wrong, that communication is only necessary in crisis, that the default state of their relationship is silence. "I'm not happy," she says. The words hang in the air, stark and undeniable. His face changes. Confusion, then defensiveness. "What do you mean? We have a good life. We have everything we need." And there it is. The reduction of happiness to material comfort. The assumption that because there's no overt suffering, there should be no complaint. "I'm not talking about our life," she says. "I'm talking about us. When was the last time we really talked? When was the last time you asked me how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what I want? When was the last time you touched me like you meant it? Not just out of obligation or routine." He is silent, not because he does not have an answer, but because he does. The answer is that he cannot remember. That somewhere along the way, she became part of the furniture, a fixture in his life that he stopped noticing. And now, confronted with her unhappiness, he does not know what to do. He does not know how to be the man she needs him to be. He does not even know if he wants to try. This is the 15th law of intimate power. Complacency is a slow death. Relationships do not end in explosions. They end in whispers, in the gradual accumulation of unmet needs, unspoken resentments, and unfulfilled desires. They end when one person wakes up and realizes that they have been living half a life, and they want more, or at least, they want different. He reaches for her hand. "I'm sorry," he says. "I didn't know you felt this way." But the apology rings hollow because it is not followed by action. It is not followed by curiosity. He does not ask her what she needs. He does not ask her what would make her happy. He simply apologizes, as if that is enough, as if acknowledging her pain absolves him of the responsibility to address it. She pulls her hand away. "I don't want an apology," she says. "I want a partner. I want someone who sees me, who chooses me, who makes an effort. And I don't know if you're capable of that anymore." The words are harsh, but they are honest. And honesty, after years of polite pretense, feels like a relief. He does not know what to say. He feels attacked, even though she is not attacking him. She is simply stating a truth that he has been avoiding, that their marriage is not working, that she is not fulfilled, that something needs to change. But change is terrifying. Change requires effort, vulnerability, the risk of failure. It is easier to stay in the familiar discomfort than to venture into the unknown. They sit in silence. The television is still muted. The room is heavy with everything they have not said over the years. And in that moment, they are at a crossroads. They can choose to fight for their marriage, to do the hard work of reconnecting, of rebuilding intimacy, or they can choose to continue as they are, living parallel lives under the same roof, until one of them dies or finds the courage to leave. This is the 16th law of intimate power. Every relationship reaches a point where you must choose to stay or to go, to fight or to surrender, to invest or to divest. And the choice is never easy because both options come with loss. If you stay, you lose the possibility of something better. If you go, you lose the history, the comfort, the identity you have built together. There is no right answer. There is only the answer you can live with. La historia continúa. Now let us turn our gaze to a different kind of relationship. Not romantic, but familial. Because the power dynamics we learn in our families are the blueprints for every relationship we will have in our lives. Consider a mother and her adult daughter. The daughter is 30 years old, independent, successful. But when she is with her mother, she becomes a child again. Not in a sweet, nostalgic way, but in a diminished, powerless way. The mother has a gift. She can deliver criticism wrapped in concern. She can undermine with a smile. She can make her daughter feel small without ever raising her voice. It is an art form, honed over decades. "You look tired," she says when they meet for lunch. "Are you taking care of yourself?" The words sound caring, but the subtext is clear. "You look bad. You are not doing enough. You are failing." The daughter feels the familiar tightness in her chest, the old defensiveness rising. "I'm fine, Mom. Just busy with work." She tries to keep her voice neutral, but there is an edge to it. The mother hears the edge and pounces. "There's no need to be defensive. I'm just worried about you. You work too much. You never make time for yourself. Or for me," she adds, and there it is. The guilt, the implication that the daughter's busy life is a rejection of her mother. This is the 17th law of intimate power. Guilt is inherited. The patterns of manipulation we experience in childhood become the patterns we replicate in adulthood. If your parent used guilt to control you, you will either use guilt to control others, or you will be especially vulnerable to guilt from others. The wound becomes the weapon. The daughter changes the subject. "How are you doing, Mom?" The mother sighs a long, theatrical sigh. "Oh, getting older. My back has been bothering me. The doctor says I need to take it easy. But who's going to take care of things if I don't?" The implication is clear. You should be taking care of me. You should be more present. You should be a better daughter. The daughter feels the weight of expectation settling on her shoulders. "Do you need help with something?" she asks, even though she knows the answer will be both yes and no. The mother will say she does not want to be a burden, but she will also list a dozen things that need doing. And the daughter will do them, not out of love, but out of obligation, out of the deep, primal fear that if she does not, she will be a bad daughter. And being a bad daughter is a label she has spent her entire life trying to avoid. This is the 18th law of intimate power. Obligation is not love. Doing something because you feel you have to is not the same as doing it because you want to. But we confuse the two. We tell ourselves that sacrifice is proof of love, that suffering is devotion, that if we are not exhausted by our relationships, we are not trying hard enough. And in that confusion, We lose the ability to distinguish between healthy connection and toxic enmeshment. The lunch continues. The mother talks about her friends, her health, her grievances. The daughter listens, nods, makes the appropriate sympathetic sounds. But inside she is screaming. She is 30 years old, and she still cannot set a boundary with her mother. She still cannot say, "I love you, but I cannot be responsible for your happiness." She still cannot claim her own life without feeling like she is abandoning the woman who gave her life. After lunch, they hug goodbye. The mother holds on just a little too long, a silent plea. "Don't leave me. Don't forget me. Don't live a life that does not include me at the center." The daughter pulls away gently, promises to call soon, and walks to her car. And as she drives away, she feels the familiar mix of relief and guilt. Relief to be free of her mother's presence. Guilt for feeling that relief. This is the 19th law of intimate power. Enmeshment masquerades as love. When a parent cannot let go, when they make their child responsible for their emotional well-being, when they blur the boundaries between where they end and the child begins, they call it love. But it is not love. It is need. It is fear. It is the inability to exist as a whole person without using another person as a crutch. The daughter goes home to her apartment. She pours a glass of wine. She sits on her couch and stares at the wall. And she thinks about all the ways her mother has shaped her. The way she apologizes for things that are not her fault. The way she overexplains herself, always trying to justify her choices. The way she struggles to accept compliments because she was taught that pride is dangerous. The way she gives and gives and gives in her relationships because she learned that her value is in what she provides, not in who she is. And she realizes that she is angry, not just at her mother, but at herself, for allowing this pattern to continue, for being complicit in her own diminishment, for not having the courage to say, "This ends now. I am not your emotional support animal. I am not your therapist. I am not your reason for living. I am your daughter, and I love you. But I will not sacrifice myself on the altar of your need." But she does not say these things. Not yet, because saying them would require a confrontation, and confrontation would cause pain, and causing pain would make her the bad guy. And so the cycle continues. The mother takes, the daughter gives, and both of them call it love. This is the 20th law of intimate power. We teach people how to treat us. Every time we accept behavior that hurts us, we are giving permission for that behavior to continue. Every time we prioritize someone else's comfort over our own well-being, we are sending a message that our needs do not matter. And people, even people who love us, will take as much as we're willing to give. Not because they are evil, but because they are human. And humans, when given the choice between their comfort and someone else's discomfort, will almost always choose their own comfort. La historia continúa. Let us return now to the realm of romantic love, but with a different lens. Let us examine the power of sex. Not sex as an act of intimacy, but sex as a tool of negotiation. Because in many relationships, sex is the currency through which power is exchanged. Consider a couple who has been together for 5 years. The initial passion has faded, as it always does. Sex has become less frequent, less spontaneous, less urgent. And in that shift, it has become something else. A bargaining chip, a reward, a punishment. She is angry with him. He forgot their anniversary. Not the big one, not the wedding anniversary, but the anniversary of their first date. A small thing, perhaps. But to her, it is a symbol. It represents his lack of attention, his taking her for granted, his failure to prioritize their relationship. And so, when he reaches for her that night, she turns away. "I'm tired," she says. The words are true, but they are also a message. You hurt me, and now I am withholding. He feels the rejection like a slap. It is not just about sex. It is about acceptance, about desirability, about being wanted. And her refusal is a statement. You are not worthy. You have failed. You do not deserve access to me. He does not argue. He does not push. He simply turns over and stares at the ceiling, feeling the distance between them like a physical thing. This is the 21st law of intimate power. Withholding is a weapon. When we use sex, affection, attention, or approval as something to be given or taken away based on behavior, We turn the relationship into a transaction. We turn our partner into a child who must earn our favor. And we turn ourselves into a judge, constantly evaluating, constantly keeping score. Days pass. The tension between them grows. He tries to make it up to her. He brings her flowers. He cooks dinner. He apologizes again. And slowly, she softens. Not because she has forgiven him, but because she has made her point. She has demonstrated her power. She has shown him that her affection is not guaranteed, that it must be earned, that he cannot take her for granted. And when they finally have sex again, it is not about connection. It is about resolution. It is the closing of a negotiation. He has paid his penance, and she has granted him access. The act itself is mechanical, perfunctory. They go through the motions, and when it is over, they both feel emptier than before. Because sex without intimacy is just friction. It is bodies moving together while souls remain apart. This is the 22nd law of intimate power. Transactional love is hollow. When every interaction is a negotiation, when every gesture is calculated, when every act of affection is contingent on behavior, the relationship becomes a business arrangement. And business arrangements, no matter how profitable, do not feed the soul. But let us consider the opposite dynamic. A relationship where sex is used not as a weapon, but as a distraction. Where physical intimacy is a substitute for emotional intimacy. Where passion is used to paper over problems. They fight constantly. About money, about chores, about whose family to visit for the holidays. The arguments are loud, vicious, full of words that cannot be taken back. But then, in the aftermath, when the anger is still hot, they fall into bed together. The sex is intense, almost violent. It is not making love. It is something rawer, something that feels more like combat than connection. And in those moments, they convince themselves that the passion means something. That if they still want each other this badly, the relationship must be worth saving. They confuse intensity with intimacy, conflict with chemistry. They tell themselves that all couples fight, that passion requires friction, that love is supposed to be hard. This is the 23rd law of intimate power. Passion is not a substitute for compatibility. You can have incredible sexual chemistry with someone who is completely wrong for you. You can feel an intense pull towards someone who brings out the worst in you. You can be addicted to the highs and lows of a volatile relationship and mistake that addiction for love. But eventually, the passion is not enough. Eventually, the fights become exhausting. Eventually, one of them realizes that they are not happy, that they have not been happy for a long time, that they have been using sex as a band-aid on a wound that requires surgery. And when that realization comes, the relationship ends, not with a bang, but with a whimper, with the quiet acknowledgement that they were never really partners. They were just two people who were good at distracting each other from their own unhappiness. La historia continúa. Let us now examine the power of silence. Not the comfortable silence of two people who are at ease with each other, but the weaponized silence of someone who has mastered the art of the cold shoulder. He has done something to upset her. He is not entirely sure what. Maybe it was the comment he made at dinner. Maybe it was the way he looked at his phone when she was talking. Maybe it was something else entirely, something he is completely unaware of. But he knows she is angry because she has stopped talking to him. Not in an obvious way. She still responds when he asks direct questions. Yes. No. Fine. But the warmth is gone. The engagement is gone. She moves through the house like a ghost, present but not participating. And he feels the absence of her attention like a physical ache. He tries to draw her out. What's wrong? Nothing, she says. But the word is a wall. He tries again. Did I do something? If I did, I'm sorry. She shrugs. It's fine. But it is not fine. They both know it is not fine. And his apologies, offered without understanding what he is apologizing for, only make it worse, because they reveal that he does not know her well enough to understand what he did wrong, that he is not paying attention, that he is apologizing not because he is sorry, but because he wants the discomfort to end. This is the 24th law of intimate power. The silent treatment is emotional abuse. It is a form of control that punishes without explanation, that demands mind reading, that makes the other person responsible for figuring out what they did wrong and how to fix it. It is a power play that says, I will withhold my presence, my warmth, my approval until you grovel sufficiently, until you prove that you care more about my comfort than your own dignity. Days pass. The silence continues. He becomes increasingly anxious, increasingly desperate to fix whatever is broken. He brings her gifts. He does extra chores. He walks on eggshells, monitoring every word, every gesture, trying not to make things worse. And in that process, he loses himself. He becomes a performer in his own home, constantly trying to appease an audience that will not tell him what they want to see. Finally, she speaks. You really don't know, do you? Her voice is cold, disappointed. He shakes his head, and the admission feels like failure. She sighs. That's the problem. If you don't know, I shouldn't have to tell you. And there it is. The impossible standard. The expectation that he should be able to read her mind, anticipate her needs, understand her feelings, without her having to articulate them. It is a test designed for him to fail, because no one can consistently meet an unstated expectation. This is the 25th law of intimate power. Expecting someone to read your mind is a form of sabotage. It sets them up to fail, and then punishes them for that failure. It allows you to maintain moral superiority while avoiding the vulnerability of clear communication. Because if you state your needs directly and they are not met, you have to confront the possibility that your partner either cannot or will not meet them. But if you never state them, you can always blame them for not knowing. He is tired of guessing, tired of apologizing for crimes he cannot name, tired of living in a relationship where love feels like a test he is constantly failing. And in that tiredness, something shifts. He stops trying. He stops apologizing. He stops walking on eggshells. And he says, I can't do this anymore. If you have something to say, say it. If you're unhappy, tell me. But I'm done playing this game. The words are a boundary. They are a refusal to participate in a dynamic that requires him to diminish himself. And her reaction is telling. She is angry. How dare you make this about you? How dare you act like you're the victim here? But underneath the anger is something else. Fear. Because if he stops playing the game, if he stops accepting the rules she has set, the power dynamic shifts. She is no longer in control. This is the 26th law of intimate power. Boundaries are revolutionary. When you stop accepting unacceptable behavior, when you refuse to participate in dynamics that harm you, when you claim your right to be treated with respect, you disrupt the system, and the person who benefited from that system will resist. They will call you selfish. They will accuse you of not caring. They will try to guilt you back into compliance. But if you hold firm, one of two things will happen. Either the relationship will evolve into something healthier, or it will end. And either outcome is better than continuing to live in a dynamic that requires you to betray yourself. La historia continúa. Let us now turn our attention to a phenomenon that is increasingly common in the modern age. The power dynamics of digital communication. Because the way we use technology in our relationships reveals much about how we negotiate power. Consider a couple where one person is constantly checking the other's online activity. Not overtly, not by demanding passwords or reading messages, but subtly, noting when they were last active on social media, seeing who they liked, who liked them, who commented on their posts, building a narrative from digital breadcrumbs. She notices that he liked another woman's photo, a woman from his past, an ex-girlfriend, or maybe just someone he used to know. The photo is innocent, all sincere, all mille, all pet, but the like is not innocent. Or at least, that is how she interprets it, because in the language of social media, a like is not just an acknowledgement. It is an expression of interest. It is attention given to someone else, attention that should be hers. She does not confront him immediately. Instead, she files it away. She begins to pay closer attention. She notices patterns. He is online late at night when she is asleep. He is quick to turn his phone face down when she enters the room. He smiles at messages he does not share with her. And each observation adds to her growing suspicion that he is hiding something. This is the 27th law of intimate power. Surveillance is a symptom of distrust. When you feel the need to monitor your partner's digital activity, the relationship is already broken. Not because they are necessarily doing anything wrong, but because you do not trust them. And a relationship without trust is a prison where both people are inmates. One evening, she can no longer contain her suspicion. "Who is she?" she asks, showing him the photo he liked. He looks confused. "Who is who?" "The woman whose photo you liked." He glances at the screen, trying to remember. "I don't know. Just someone from high school, I think." Why? The casualness of his response infuriates her. Because to him, it was nothing. A mindless scroll, a reflexive tap, a moment he has already forgotten. But to her, it is evidence. Proof that his attention wanders. Proof that he is not fully committed. Proof that she is not enough. They argue. He is defensive. "You're being crazy. It's just a like. It doesn't mean anything." And maybe he is right. Maybe it does not mean anything. But the fact that he dismisses her feelings, that he calls her crazy for having them, that he refuses to understand why it bothers her, that means something. It means he does not see her perspective as valid. It means he prioritizes his right to do what he wants over her need, to feel secure. This is the 28th law of intimate power. Dismissing someone's feelings is a form of gaslighting. When you tell someone they are overreacting, being too sensitive, making something out of nothing, you are invalidating their experience. You are telling them that their perception of reality is wrong. And over time, that invalidation erodes their sense of self. They begin to doubt their own instincts. They begin to question whether they are the problem. But let us also consider his perspective. He is tired of being monitored, tired of having to justify every interaction, every like, every moment of his digital life. He feels suffocated by her need for constant reassurance. He feels like he is living under surveillance, where every action is scrutinized, every choice is questioned, and he resents it. He resents that she does not trust him. He resents that he has to prove his loyalty constantly. He resents that his life has become small, constrained by her insecurity. This is the 29th law of intimate power. Insecurity is contagious. When one person's fear drives the relationship, both people suffer. The insecure person suffers because they are constantly anxious, constantly vigilant, constantly waiting for the betrayal they believe is inevitable. And the other person suffers because they are constantly defending themselves, constantly trying to prove something that should not need proving, constantly living under the weight of suspicion. The relationship becomes a cycle. Her insecurity drives her to monitor him. Her monitoring makes him feel controlled. His resentment makes him withdraw. His withdrawal confirms her fears. Her fears intensify her monitoring. And round they go, each feeding the other's worst impulses, until the relationship is nothing but suspicion and resentment held together by the memory of what it used to be. One of them will eventually break the cycle. Either she will learn to trust, to let go of the need to control, to accept that love requires risk, or he will leave, deciding that the cost of staying is too high. Or they will both stay, locked in this dance of dysfunction, calling it love because they do not know what else to call it. La historia continúa. Now let us examine a different kind of power, the power of the person who leaves. Because in any relationship, the person who is willing to walk away holds the ultimate power. They have been together for 2 years. She loves him, deeply, completely, in a way that frightens her. He loves her too, or so he says. But his love is different. It is conditional. It is measured. It is always held in reserve, as if he is protecting himself from the possibility of loss by never fully investing. She feels this. She feels the way he keeps one foot out the door, the way he avoids talking about the future, the way he flinches when she uses the word forever, and it makes her desperate. She tries harder. She gives more. She becomes the perfect girlfriend, anticipating his needs, suppressing her own, molding herself into whatever she thinks he wants. Because if she can just be enough, if she can just love him well enough, he will stay. He will choose her. He will commit. But the opposite happens. The more she chases, the more he retreats. The more she gives, the less he values what he receives. Because he has learned a fundamental truth about human nature. We do not value what comes easily. We value what we have to work for. And she has made herself too available, too eager, too willing to accept whatever scraps of affection he offers. This is the 30th law of intimate power. Desperation repels. When you need someone too much, when your happiness depends on their presence, when you lose yourself in the pursuit of their approval, you become unattractive. Not physically, but energetically. You become a weight, a responsibility, a burden. And people, even people who care about you, will pull away from that weight. One day, she realizes what she has become. She looks at herself through his eyes and sees someone she does not recognize. Someone small, someone diminished, someone who has given away so much of herself that there is almost nothing left. And in that moment of clarity, she makes a decision. She stops chasing. She stops trying. She stops contorting herself into shapes that do not fit. And she tells him, I can't do this anymore. I love you, but I love myself more. And I won't keep begging you to choose me. The words are a revelation, not just to him, but to herself. Because in saying them, she reclaims her power. She stops being the one who needs. She becomes the one who chooses. And the shift is immediate. He feels it. The ground beneath him has shifted. She is no longer a sure thing. She is no longer waiting for him. She is walking away. And suddenly, she becomes interesting again. Suddenly, he wants her. This is the 31st law of intimate power. Walking away is the ultimate power move. When you are willing to lose someone, when you prioritize your own well-being over the relationship, when you refuse to settle for less than you deserve, you become magnetic. Not because you are playing games, but because you are finally being authentic. You are finally valuing yourself. And people are drawn to those who value themselves. He tries to win her back. He makes promises. He talks about the future. He does all the things she had been begging him to do for months. But it is too late. Not because she does not love him anymore, but because she has seen behind the curtain. She has seen that his commitment was always contingent on her availability. That he only wanted her when he thought he might lose her. That his love was not about her, but about his own ego. His own need to be desired. She walks away. It is not easy. It hurts. She mourns not just the relationship, but the version of the future she had imagined. But she also feels something else. Relief. Freedom. The lightness of no longer carrying the weight of someone else's ambivalence. And in that freedom, she begins to rebuild herself. To remember who she was before she lost herself in the pursuit of his approval. This is the 32nd law of intimate power. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is leave. Not because the other person is bad. Not because the relationship is abusive. But because it is not serving you. Because you have become smaller in it. Because you are giving more than you are receiving. Because you deserve more than someone who only wants you when they think they might lose you. La historia continúa. Let us now consider the power dynamics in a relationship where one person has significantly more resources than the other. Money, as we know, is power. And in intimate relationships, financial imbalance creates a power imbalance that is difficult to navigate. He is wealthy, not obscenely so, but comfortable. He owns his home, drives a nice car, takes vacations without worrying about the cost. She is not wealthy. She works hard, lives paycheck to paycheck, worries about rent and bills, and the cost of unexpected expenses. When they started dating, the financial difference did not seem to matter. But as the relationship deepened, it became impossible to ignore. He pays for everything. Dinners, trips, entertainment. At first, she tries to contribute. She offers to split the bill, to pay her share. But he waves her off. Don't worry about it, he says. I've got it. And it feels generous. It feels like he is taking care of her. But over time, it begins to feel like something else. Like debt. Like obligation. Like she owes him something she cannot name. This is the 33rd law of intimate power. Financial dependence creates emotional dependence. When one person controls the resources, they control the options. They control where you go, what you do, how you live. And even if they never explicitly use that control, the imbalance is always there, humming beneath the surface of every interaction. She begins to notice the subtle ways his money gives him power. He chooses the restaurants because he is paying. He decides where they go on vacation because he is funding it. He makes decisions about their life together without consulting her because, implicitly, he is the one investing. And she goes along with it because what choice does she have? She cannot afford to do the things he wants to do. She cannot contribute equally. So she accepts his generosity and swallows her resentment. One day, they have an argument. It is about something small, something that should not matter. But in the heat of the moment, he says something that reveals the truth beneath the surface. I pay for everything. The least you could do is be grateful. The words hang in the air, ugly and undeniable. And she realizes that his generosity was never generosity. It was an investment. And now he is calling in the debt. This is the 34th law of intimate power. Generosity with strings attached is manipulation. When someone gives you something and then uses that gift to control you, to guilt you, to remind you of what you owe, it was never a gift. It was a transaction. And you are now in debt. She feels the anger rising. I never asked you to pay for everything, she says. You insisted. You made me feel like I couldn't say no. And now you're using it against me. He is defensive. I'm not using it against you. I'm just saying that you could show a little appreciation. But appreciation is not what he wants. What he wants is compliance. What he wants is for her to remember that he holds the power, that she is dependent on him, that she should be grateful for his presence in her life. The argument escalates. Things are said that cannot be unsaid. And when it is over, they both know that something fundamental has broken. The illusion of equality has been shattered. The truth has been spoken. He has money, and she does not. And in his mind, that gives him the right to make the rules. She begins to plan her exit. Not immediately. She does not have the resources to leave right away. But she starts saving. She starts looking for a better job. She starts building a life that does not depend on him. Because she has learned a crucial lesson. Financial independence is freedom. And without freedom, love is just another word for captivity. This is the 35th law of intimate power. You cannot have an equal partnership without equal power. And power in our society is often measured in money. If you want to be truly free in your relationships, you must be financially independent. You must be able to walk away. You must be able to say no without fearing the consequences. La historia continúa. Now let us examine the power of narrative. Because in every relationship, there is a story being told. And the person who controls the story controls the relationship. They are at a party with friends. Someone asks how they met. He launches into the story, and she listens, and she realizes that his version is different from hers. Not in the facts, but in the framing. In his version, he pursued her. He won her over. He was the active agent, and she was the prize. In her version, they met by chance, connected naturally, chose each other mutually. But his version is the one that gets told. His version is the one that becomes the official narrative of their relationship. This happens again and again. When they argue, he reframes the conflict in a way that makes him the reasonable one and her the emotional one. When they make decisions, he presents them to others as his ideas, even when they were collaborative. When they have problems, he tells his friends his side of the story, shaping their perception before she even has a chance to speak. This is the 36th law of intimate power. Whoever controls the narrative controls the reality, because perception is reality. If he can convince others, and eventually you, that his version of events is the truth, then it becomes the truth. Your experience, your perspective, your feelings become secondary to the story he has constructed. She begins to notice how often she is edited out of their shared story, how often her contributions are minimized or erased, how often she is cast as a supporting character in a narrative where he is the hero. And she realizes that this is not accidental. It is a form of control. By shaping how others see their relationship, he shapes how she sees it. He makes her doubt her own perceptions. He makes her question whether her version of events is valid. One day, she interrupts him. That's not how it happened, she says. They are with friends, and he is telling a story about a trip they took. In his version, he planned everything, made all the decisions, saved the day when things went wrong. In reality, she did most of planning. She made the reservations. She navigated when they got lost. But in his story, she is barely present. He laughs it off. You're remembering it wrong, he says. And the friends laugh with him. And in that moment, she feels invisible. She feels erased. She feels like she is living in a reality that only she can see, while everyone else accepts his version as truth. This is the 37th law of intimate power. Gaslighting is the rewriting of reality. When someone consistently denies your experience, contradicts your memory, and insists that their version of events is the only valid one, they are not just disagreeing with you. They are trying to make you doubt your own sanity. They are trying to make you dependent on their version of reality because you can no longer trust your own. She stops trying to correct him. She stops sharing her perspective. Because what is the point? He will just dismiss it, reframe it, make her feel like she is the one who is confused. And so she becomes silent. She becomes a ghost in her own relationship, present but not participating, watching her life be narrated by someone else. But silence is not peace. Silence is erosion. And one day, she will wake up and realize that she has disappeared entirely, that she has become a character in someone else's story, with no agency, no voice, no reality of her own. And she will have to decide whether to reclaim her narrative or to continue living in his. La historia continúa. Let us now turn to a particularly insidious form of power, the power of the victim. Because victimhood, when weaponized, is one of the most effective forms of manipulation. He has learned that when he presents himself as wounded, as suffering, as the one who has been wronged, people rush to comfort him. They take his side. They validate his feelings. And most importantly, they do not hold him accountable for his actions. In their relationship, this pattern plays out constantly. When she tries to address a problem, he turns it around. He makes himself the victim. "You're always criticizing me," he says. "You never appreciate what I do. You make me feel like I'm not good enough." And suddenly, the conversation is no longer about the issue she raised. It is about his hurt feelings. It is about her failure to be supportive. It is about how she is the one causing harm. This is the 38th law of intimate power. Weaponized victimhood is a shield and a sword. It protects the person from accountability while simultaneously attacking the other person's character. It transforms the accuser into the accused. It makes it impossible to address problems, because any attempt to do so is reframed as an attack. She learns to walk on eggshells. She learns to phrase her concerns in the softest possible language. She learns to preface every criticism with praise, every request with an apology. She learns to manage his emotions before she can even begin to address her own needs. And in that process, her needs become secondary. They become less important than his fragility. But his fragility is not real. Or rather, it is real in the moment, but it is also strategic. He has learned that by presenting himself as vulnerable, as hurt, as the victim of her cruelty, he can avoid responsibility. He can make her feel guilty for having needs. He can make her the villain in a story where he is the innocent victim. One day, she realizes what is happening. She sees the pattern. She sees how every conversation about her needs becomes a conversation about his feelings. She sees how she has been trained to prioritize his emotional comfort over her own well-being. She sees how she has become the caretaker of his ego, the manager of his moods, the one responsible for making sure he never has to feel bad about himself. And she is exhausted. She is tired of being the villain in his story. She is tired of apologizing for having needs. She is tired of making herself smaller so that he can feel bigger. And she decides that she is done. This is the 39th law of intimate power. You are not responsible for managing someone else's emotions. You are not required to sacrifice your needs to protect someone else's ego. You are not obligated to accept blame for problems you did not create. And when someone consistently uses their victimhood to avoid accountability, the kindest thing you can do, for both of you, is to stop participating. She tells him that things need to change, that she needs to be able to express her needs without him falling apart, that she needs him to take responsibility for his actions instead of always making himself the victim. And his response is predictable. He cries. He tells her she is being cruel. He tells her that she does not understand how hard things are for him. He tells her that if she really loved him, she would be more patient, more understanding, more willing to accept him as he is. And she realizes that he will never change, because change requires acknowledging that there is a problem. And he has built his entire identity around being the victim, the wounded one, the one who needs to be protected and coddled and never challenged. To change would mean giving up that identity, and he is not willing to do that. So she leaves, and he tells everyone who will listen that she abandoned him, that she was cold, unfeeling, cruel, that he gave her everything and she threw it away. He rewrites the story, casting himself as the victim once again. And some people believe him, because victimhood is compelling. It is easier to sympathize with someone who claims to be hurt than to question whether their hurt is legitimate. But she knows the truth, and that is enough. She knows that leaving was not cruelty. It was self-preservation. She knows that she did not abandon him. She freed herself. And she knows that his version of the story, no matter how widely believed, does not change the reality of what she experienced. This is the 40th law of intimate power. Your truth does not require validation from others. You do not need everyone to understand why you left. You do not need to justify your choices to people who were not in the relationship. You do not need to defend yourself against someone else's narrative. You only need to know, in your own heart, that you did what was necessary to protect yourself. La historia continúa. Let us now examine the power dynamics in a relationship where one person is significantly more attractive than the other. Because physical attractiveness, like money, is a form of social capital, and imbalances in social capital create imbalances in power. She is beautiful. Not just pretty, but the kind of beautiful that stops conversations, that makes people turn and stare, that opens doors and creates opportunities. He is average, not unattractive, but unremarkable, the kind of person who blends into a crowd. And when they are together, people wonder. They wonder what she sees in him. They wonder if he is rich, or funny, or secretly extraordinary in some way that is not immediately apparent. He feels this. He feels the eyes on them. He feels the judgment. He feels the unspoken question. What is she doing with him? And that question becomes a weight he carries. It becomes a source of insecurity that colors every interaction. Because if she is out of his league, then she could leave at any time. She could find someone better, someone more attractive, more successful, more worthy of her beauty. This is the 41st law of intimate power. Perceived imbalance creates insecurity. When one person believes they're getting a better deal than they deserve, they live in constant fear of the other person realizing it. They become hypervigilant, monitoring for signs of dissatisfaction, for wandering eyes, for the inevitable moment when their partner wakes up and sees them for what they really are. His insecurity manifests in control. He does not want her to go out without him. He does not want her to dress in ways that attract attention. He does not want her to have male friends. He frames it as love, as protectiveness, as not wanting to share her with the world. But it is fear. It is the terror that if she is exposed to other options, she will realize she has options. She feels suffocated. She feels like a possession, not a partner. She feels like he does not trust her, does not respect her, does not see her as a person with agency and choice. And she begins to resent him, not because of what he is, but because of how he treats her, because he has made his insecurity her problem. He has made his fear her cage. This is the 42nd law of intimate power. Insecurity is a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you treat someone like they're going to leave, when you try to control them out of fear, when you make them feel trapped, you create the very conditions that will drive them away. You transform love into obligation, connection into captivity, and eventually they will leave, not because they found someone better, but because they found someone who trusts them. One day, she tells him that she needs space, that she needs him to trust her, that she needs to be able to live her life without constantly having to reassure him. And he hears it as confirmation of his worst fears. "You're going to leave me," he says. "You're going to find someone else." And she is tired of managing his insecurity, tired of being blamed for his fear, tired of being punished for being beautiful. "I'm going to leave you if you don't stop," she says. "Not because I want someone else, but because I can't live like this. I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly on trial for crimes I haven't committed. I can't be with someone who sees me as a flight risk instead of a partner." The words are a boundary. They are a final warning. And he has a choice. He can work on his insecurity. He can learn to trust. He can see her as a person who chose him and continues to choose him every day. Or he can continue down the path of control and suspicion and lose her in the process. This is the 43rd law of intimate power. Trust is a choice. You can choose to believe that your partner is with you because they want to be. You can choose to see their presence as a gift, not a guarantee. You can choose to trust them until they give you a reason not to. Or you can choose to live in fear, to monitor and control and suspect. But that second choice will destroy the relationship, not because they will betray you, but because you will make it impossible for them to stay. La historia continúa. Now let us turn to the power of emotional labor, because in many relationships, one person does the work of maintaining the emotional health of the partnership, and that work is invisible, undervalued, and exhausting. She remembers birthdays. She plans dates. She checks in on his feelings. She notices when he is stressed and asks what she can do to help. She manages their social calendar. She buys gifts for his family. She remembers the names of his colleagues and asks about them. She creates the emotional infrastructure that makes their relationship feel warm, connected, alive. He does none of these things, not because he is cruel, but because it does not occur to him. He assumes that relationships just work. That connection just happens. That intimacy maintains itself. He does not see the labor she is doing because it is invisible. It is the work of noticing, of remembering, of caring, of tending. And invisible work is easy to take for granted. This is the 44th law of intimate power. Emotional labor is work. It requires time, energy, attention, and skill. And when one person does all of it, the relationship becomes unbalanced. The person doing the labor becomes exhausted. The person not doing it becomes entitled. And resentment builds like pressure in a closed system. One day, she stops. Not dramatically, not as a punishment, but because she is tired. She stops planning dates. She stops checking in. She stops managing his emotions and their social life. She stops doing the invisible work that has been holding their relationship together. And she waits to see what will happen. At first, he does not notice. The relationship coasts on momentum. But slowly, things begin to deteriorate. They stop going out. They stop having meaningful conversations. They stop connecting. And he wonders what is wrong. He wonders why things feel different. But it does not occur to him that the difference is her absence. Not her physical absence, but the absence of her labor. Finally, he asks, "You seem distant lately. Is everything okay?" And she has a choice. She can explain. She can tell him about the work she has been doing, the work he has not been doing, the imbalance that has been draining her. Or she can continue to withdraw, letting the relationship die slowly from neglect. She chooses to explain. "I'm tired," she says. "I'm tired of being the only one who puts effort into this relationship. I'm tired of being the one who plans everything, remembers everything, cares about everything. I need you to step up. I need you to do your share of the emotional work." He is confused. What emotional work? I love you. I'm here. What more do you want? And his confusion is genuine, because he has never had to think about this. He has never had to consider that relationships require maintenance, that intimacy requires effort, that connection requires tending. He thought his presence was enough. He thought love was a feeling, not an action. This is the 45th law of intimate power. Love is a verb. It is not just something you feel. It is something you do. It is the daily choice to show up, to pay attention, to care, to invest. And when one person is doing all the doing while the other person is just feeling, the relationship becomes a one-sided performance. She tries to teach him. She explains what emotional labor looks like. The remembering, the planning, the noticing, the caring. She gives him examples. She asks him to take on specific tasks. And he tries. For a while. But it does not come naturally to him. It feels like work because it is work. And he resents having to do it. He resents that love, which should be easy, has become complicated. This is the 46th law of intimate power. You cannot teach someone to care. You can teach them the actions of caring. You can tell them to remember birthdays, to plan dates, to ask about your day. But you cannot teach them to want to do these things. You cannot teach them to see you, to prioritize you, to invest in you. Either they do, or they do not. And if they do not, no amount of explanation will change that. She realizes this slowly. She realizes that she has been trying to teach him something that should be instinctive, that she has been asking him to care in ways that do not come naturally to him. And she has to decide whether she can accept a relationship where she does most of the emotional work, or whether she needs a partner who meets her halfway. This is the 47th law of intimate power. Compatibility is not just about attraction or shared interests. It is about matching levels of investment. If one person is willing to do the work and the other is not, the relationship will always be unbalanced. And unbalanced relationships, no matter how much love is present, are exhausting for the person carrying the weight. La historia continúa. Let us now examine the power of forgiveness. Because forgiveness in relationships is not always the virtue we are taught it is. Sometimes forgiveness is a tool of control. Sometimes it is a way of avoiding accountability. And sometimes it is a form of self-betrayal. He cheated, not physically but emotionally. He developed a connection with someone else. He shared things with them that he did not share with her. He sought comfort, validation, intimacy outside their relationship. And when she found out, she was devastated. He apologized. He cried. He swore it would never happen again. He told her it meant nothing, that it was a mistake, that he loves only her. And she wanted to believe him. She wanted to forgive him, because the alternative, ending the relationship, felt too painful, too final, too much like failure. So she forgave him. She told him she understood. She told him they could move past this. She told him she still loved him. And she meant it. In that moment, she meant it. But forgiveness is not a switch you flip. It is a process. And the process is long and painful and complicated. This is the 48th law of intimate power. Forgiveness without healing is just suppression. When you forgive someone before you have fully processed the hurt, before you have expressed the anger, before you have grieved the betrayal, you are not forgiving. You are bypassing. You are pushing the pain down, hoping it will disappear. But it does not disappear. It festers. Months pass. She tells herself she has forgiven him. She tells herself they have moved on. But she has not, and they have not. The betrayal sits between them like a ghost. She finds herself checking his phone. She finds herself questioning his whereabouts. She finds herself unable to trust him, even though she said she forgave him. And she feels guilty for not being able to let it go. She feels like she is the problem, like her inability to forget is what is keeping them from healing. But the problem is not her inability to forget. The problem is that he has not done the work to rebuild trust. He apologized, yes, but apology is just words. Trust is rebuilt through consistent action over time, through transparency, through patience, through understanding that forgiveness is not the same as absolution, that she has the right to be hurt, to be angry, to need reassurance. And he has not given her that. He has expected her forgiveness to erase the betrayal. He has expected her to move on as quickly as he has. This is the 49th law of intimate power. The person who caused the harm does not get to dictate the timeline of healing. They do not get to decide when you should be over it. They do not get to be impatient with your process. If they truly understand the harm they caused, they will give you space to heal. They will do the work to rebuild trust. They will accept that forgiveness is a gift, not an obligation. But he does not do this. Instead, he becomes frustrated. I said I was sorry. How long are you going to hold this over my head? The question is an accusation. It implies that she is being unreasonable, that she is punishing him, that she is the one causing problems by not being able to let go. And she begins to doubt herself. Maybe he is right. Maybe she is holding on to the past. Maybe she is being unfair. Maybe she should just let it go. And so she tries harder to forgive. She tries harder to forget. She tries harder to be the person who can move past betrayal without carrying scars. But you cannot force healing. You cannot will yourself to trust someone who broke your trust. You cannot pretend that everything is fine when it is not. And the more she tries to force it, the more disconnected she feels. From him, from herself, from the relationship. This is the 50th law of intimate power. Premature forgiveness is self-betrayal. When you forgive someone before you are ready, when you suppress your hurt to keep the peace, when you prioritize their comfort over your healing, You are betraying yourself. You are telling yourself that your pain does not matter, that your needs are secondary, that maintaining the relationship is more important than honoring your own experience. Eventually, she realizes that she cannot do this. She cannot pretend to have forgiven when she has not. She cannot continue in a relationship where trust has been broken and not repaired. She cannot keep betraying herself for the sake of keeping him comfortable. And so she tells him the truth. I thought I could forgive you. I wanted to, but I can't. Not like this. Not when you haven't done the work to earn back my trust. Not when you're more concerned with being forgiven than with understanding what you did. He is angry. He feels betrayed. He feels like she lied to him when she said she forgave him. But she did not lie. She tried. She wanted to. But forgiveness is not something you can force. It is something that happens, or does not happen, based on 1,000 factors. Based on whether the person who hurt you takes responsibility. Based on whether they change their behavior. Based on whether you feel safe with them again. And she does not feel safe. She does not trust him. And without trust, there is no relationship. There is only the shell of one, held together by history and hope and the fear of being alone. This is the 51st law of intimate power. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to fully restore. You can rebuild something, but it will not be the same as what you had before. It will be different, more fragile, more guarded, and both people have to accept that. The person who broke the trust has to accept that they caused permanent damage, and the person who was hurt has to accept that they may never feel completely safe again. And sometimes, the kindest thing to do is to acknowledge that the relationship cannot survive the betrayal, that trying to force it to survive is just prolonging the pain. La historia continúa. Let us now turn to the final, and perhaps most important power dynamic, the power of self-knowledge. Because the most dangerous person in any relationship is the one who does not know themselves, who does not understand their own patterns, their own wounds, their own capacity for harm. She has been in 5 relationships, and in every one, the same pattern has emerged. It starts with intensity, with passion, with the feeling that this person is the one, that this time it will be different. But then slowly, she begins to pull away. She becomes critical. She finds flaws. She creates distance. And eventually, she leaves. And she tells herself that it was their fault, that they were not right for her, that she deserves better. But after the 5th time, she begins to wonder, is it them? Or is it her? Is she running from bad relationships? Or is she running from intimacy itself? Is she protecting herself from people who would hurt her? Or is she protecting herself from the vulnerability that real connection requires? This is the 52nd law of intimate power. Your relationship patterns are a mirror. They show you not just what you attract, but what you avoid. Not just what you seek, but what you fear. If you find yourself in the same dynamic over and over, with different people, the common denominator is you. And until you understand your own role in the pattern, you will continue to repeat it. She begins to do the work. She goes to therapy. She examines her childhood. She looks at the relationship between her parents. She sees the ways her father was emotionally unavailable, the ways her mother was critical and controlling. She sees how she learned that love is conditional, that closeness is dangerous, that vulnerability leads to pain. And she sees how she has been recreating these dynamics in her adult relationships, how she chooses partners who are emotionally unavailable, just like her father, so that she can replay the childhood drama of trying to earn love from someone who cannot give it, how she becomes critical and controlling, just like her mother, when she feels someone getting too close, how she sabotages relationships before they can hurt her, because abandonment feels safer when you are the one doing the abandoning. This is the 53rd law of intimate power. We are all wounded. We all carry trauma from our past. And that trauma shapes how we love, how we trust, how we connect. It is not an excuse for bad behavior, but it is an explanation. And understanding the explanation is the first step toward change. She begins to change. Not overnight, not easily, but slowly. She becomes aware of her patterns. She notices when she is pulling away. She notices when she is being critical. She notices when she is creating distance as a defense mechanism. And instead of acting on those impulses automatically, she pauses. She asks herself what she is really afraid of. She communicates her fears instead of acting them out. And her relationships begin to change. Not because she has found better partners, but because she has become a better partner. Because she is no longer running from intimacy. Because she is willing to be vulnerable, to be seen, to risk being hurt. Because she understands that love without risk is not love. It is just safety. And safety, while comfortable, is not the same as connection. This is the 54th law of intimate power. You cannot have intimacy without vulnerability. You cannot have connection without risk. You cannot have love without the possibility of loss. And if you are not willing to be vulnerable, if you are not willing to risk being hurt, you will never experience true intimacy. You will only experience the shallow facsimile of it, the performance of connection without the substance. But vulnerability is terrifying. It means letting someone see you. Not the curated version, not the mask, but the real you. The messy, uncertain, and afraid, flawed you. It means giving someone the power to hurt you and trusting that they will not, or accepting that they might, and choosing to risk it anyway. This is the 55th law of intimate power. Love is a gamble. You are betting that the person you choose will honor your vulnerability, that they will see you and not turn away, that they will hold your heart gently. But there are no guarantees. They might hurt you. They might leave. They might betray you. And you have to decide whether the possibility of connection is worth the risk of pain. For some people, it is not. They have been hurt too many times. They have learned that vulnerability is dangerous. They have built walls so high that no one can scale them. And they live safe, protected, alone. They tell themselves they are fine. They tell themselves they do not need anyone. They tell themselves that independence is strength. And maybe it is. But it is also loneliness. For others, the risk is worth it. They have been hurt, yes, but they have also been loved. They have experienced the profound beauty of being truly seen and accepted. They have felt the warmth of genuine connection, and they know that the pain of loss, while real, is the price of having loved, and they are willing to pay that price. This is the 56th law of intimate power. The choice is yours. You can protect yourself from pain by never letting anyone in, or you can risk pain for the possibility of love. Neither choice is wrong, but both have consequences, and you have to decide which consequences you can live with. La historia continúa. Now, as we near the end of our journey through the theater of human intimacy, let us step back and see the stage in its entirety. Let us see all the actors, all the masks, all the performances, and let us ask the question that has been lurking beneath every story, every law, every observation. Is love real? Or is it just a negotiation? Is it a genuine connection between souls? Or is it just a transaction between egos? The answer, like most truths, is complicated. Love is both. It is real and it is a negotiation. It is genuine and it is strategic. It is selfless and it is selfish. It is the most beautiful and the most brutal thing we do as humans. We are animals, driven by biological imperatives. We seek mates who will provide resources, protection, genetic fitness. We compete for status, for attention, for the best possible partner. We use strategies, conscious and unconscious, to attract, to keep, to control. This is not cynical. This is nature. This is evolution. This is the machinery beneath the poetry. But we are also more than animals. We are conscious beings capable of transcending our programming. We can choose to love not because it serves us, but because it honors the other person. We can choose to be vulnerable not because it is strategic, but because it is authentic. We can choose to stay not because we are trapped, but because we are committed. We can choose to see our partner not as a means to an end, but as an end in themselves. This is the 57th law of intimate power. Love is a choice between your animal self and your higher self, between your ego and your soul, between taking and giving, between control and surrender. And every day, in every interaction, you are making that choice. Sometimes you choose your animal self. Sometimes you choose your higher self. And the quality of your relationships is determined by which self you choose more often. The couples we have observed throughout this journey, they are all making these choices. The woman who uses silence as a weapon, she is choosing control over connection. The man who monitors his partner's every move, he is choosing fear over trust. The person who withholds affection to punish, who uses guilt to manipulate, who gaslights to maintain power, they are all choosing their animal self. They are all choosing the negotiation over the love. But there are other choices available. The choice to communicate directly instead of manipulating indirectly. The choice to trust instead of control. The choice to be vulnerable instead of protected. The choice to forgive genuinely instead of weaponizing forgiveness. The choice to do the work of emotional labor, not because you have to, but because you want to. The choice to see your partner as a whole person, not as a collection of needs they meet or fail to meet. This is the 58th law of intimate power. Conscious love is possible, but it requires awareness. It requires seeing the games you play, the masks you wear, the ways you manipulate and control. It requires being honest about your own capacity for harm. And then, it requires choosing differently. Choosing to be the person who breaks the pattern, who refuses to play the game, who loves consciously, intentionally, authentically. But here is the difficult truth. You cannot do this alone. Conscious love requires two conscious people. If you are doing the work and your partner is not, the relationship will still be a negotiation. It will still be a power struggle. Because you cannot force someone to be conscious. You cannot make someone choose their higher self. You can only choose for yourself. And sometimes, choosing for yourself means choosing to leave. This is the 59th law of intimate power. You cannot save a relationship by yourself. You cannot do both people's work. You cannot be conscious enough for two. If your partner is not willing to see their patterns, to acknowledge their harm, to choose differently, then the relationship will remain stuck in the old dynamics. And you will have to decide whether you can accept that, or whether you need to walk away. Walking away is not failure. It is not giving up. It is not proof that you did not love enough. Sometimes, walking away is the most loving thing you can do. For yourself, certainly, but also for the other person. Because staying in a dysfunctional relationship, trying to fix it alone, enabling their unconscious behavior, that is not love. That is codependence. That is self-sacrifice disguised as devotion. This is the 60th law of intimate power. Leaving is sometimes the most powerful act of love. It says, I love you, but I love myself more. It says, I will not participate in a dynamic that harms us both. It says, I release you to do your own work, and I release myself to find a relationship that honors who I am becoming. And so we return to where we began, to the theater that never closes, to the stage where we all perform, to the masks we wear and the games we play. But now, perhaps, you see it differently. You see the machinery beneath the magic. You see the negotiation beneath the romance. You see the power dynamics that shape every interaction, every choice, every moment of connection or disconnection. And what you do with this knowledge is up to you. You can use it to become a better manipulator, to play the game more skillfully, to win the negotiation, or you can use it to become more conscious, to see your own patterns, to choose differently, to love more authentically. The choice, as always, is yours, but you cannot unknow what you now know. You cannot unsee what has been revealed. The mask has been lifted, the curtain has been pulled back, and you are standing in the wings, looking at the stage, deciding what role you want to play. Will you be the manipulator or the manipulated, the controller or the controlled, the conscious or the unconscious? Will you choose your animal self or your higher self? Will you negotiate or will you love? These are not easy questions. They do not have simple answers, because we are all always both. We are animals and angels. We are strategic and sincere. We are selfish and selfless. We are human, and being human means living in the tension between what we are and what we could be. But here is what I know. The relationships that transcend the negotiation, that move beyond the power struggle, that become something more than a transaction, they are the ones where both people are doing the work, where both people are choosing consciousness, where both people are willing to see themselves clearly, to acknowledge their capacity for harm, and to choose differently. These relationships are rare. They are difficult. They require constant vigilance, constant honesty, constant choice. But they are possible, and they are worth it, because in those relationships, you are not just negotiating. You are not just performing. You are actually connecting, soul to soul, human to human, without the mask. And that connection, that genuine intimacy, that is what we are all searching for beneath the games and the strategies and the power plays. That is what we are all hungry for. To be seen, to be known, to be loved not for what we provide or how we perform, but for who we are. This is the final law of intimate power. The ultimate power is the power to be yourself, to remove the mask, to stop performing, to risk being seen in all your flawed, messy, beautiful humanity, and to find someone who sees you and does not turn away, who sees you and chooses you anyway, who sees you and loves you not despite your imperfections, but including them. That is the love that transcends negotiation. That is the love that is worth the risk. That is the love that makes us more than animals playing games. That is the love that makes us human. And so, the curtain falls on this act, but the show continues inside each of us, in the silence of our thoughts. The mask we've analyzed today, you may know it well. You may wear it, or perhaps you see it in someone you love. The comment section below is not a place for judgment. It's our stage for confessions, a safe space for observers. Use that space to share your story. What mask did you have to wear to survive? We want to hear from you. And if you felt understood here, subscribe. Because here, you are not alone. Together, we'll keep unraveling human theater, one mask at a time. The next act is about to begin.